Akumajo Densetsu, the third main entry in the Akumajo Dracula aka Castlevania series, is considered by most old-school gaming enthusiasts as the best of the three Dracula games to grace the Nintendo family computer. Returning to the more linear, platforming-based formula of the original Dracula, Densetsu maintains that style of play while adopting some additional bits, including a couple ideas from its immediate predecessor, to create one of the finest games on the Famicom. When the game was ported to overseas markets and became Castlevania III Dracula's Curse, there were some changes made from the original version. Some of these changes include graphical changes due to censorship among other things, audio changes due to the NES's lack of support for external audio enhancements, which meant that the VRC6 chip that Densetsu employed could not be taken advantage of, and also some gameplay changes here and there, some of which make Dracula's Curse a fair more challenging than its Famicom original. Now, we already looked at Castlevania 3 in the past so long ago, and to make a long story short, it's a great game, both a worthy sequel and evolution of the original Castlevania. However, some folks swear by the original Akumajo Densetsu due to its pure state without being stripped away of its enhanced audio or visual splendor, and much prefer that version of the game. And with its inclusion on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection that was released a couple years back, added in via software patch by the way, more people are able to play this alternate version. And how does Akumajo Densetsu fare in comparison to its localized edition? Well, there are some things that are fine in its original form, while there are other things where the localized version does it better. Shocking, I know, but bear with me. First off, a quick rundown of Akumajo Densetsu, which places you in the role of Ralph C. Belmondo, the forefather of original Dracula protagonist Simon Belmondo, who must venture across the land to make his way to the accursed demon castle and bring about an end to the dark machinations of the evil vampire king himself, Count Dracula. Ralph plays as his descendant did, armed with a whip that he can upgrade with additional power-ups, capable of gaining additional sub-weapons and prone to stiff jumping as well as issues using sub-weapons on stairs. Progress is similar to Dracula. Go through a linear level of monsters until you reach the end boss where you kill it and grab the glowing red orb thing to move on to the next level. There are some points where you'll come across a fork on the road, being given a choice as to where you'd like to go, which ends up altering the path you'll travel to reach the demon castle, and something that gives Densetsu a bit of replay value. Ralph will also come across potential allies wishing to join you on your quest. Accept his aid and you can press select to switch between the two. Decline, and he'll piss off somewhere else and you'll go about your own merry ways. There are 3 allies to join you on your journey, though only one can join you at any one time. There's Grant, a man seeking revenge for the death of his family, armed with a throwing dagger as his main weapon, and can also pick up an axe sub-weapon. Grant moves fast, jumps high, and can also cling to most walls and ceilings, allowing him to reach places Ralph cannot. He cannot withstand much punishment, however, so use him wisely. Another potential ally is Sypha, a wandering adventurer well-versed in magic. Collecting spell books in place of the usual sub-weapons allows Sypha to cast magic spells. Lightning orbs, ice spells, and a powerful flame attack are this ally's greatest weapons, which makes up for the short-range staff as well as lower resistance to damage. Finally, there's Alucard, the half-vampire son of Dracula, armed with an upgradable ball of destruction attack that isn't very good. Alucard's key ability is transforming into a bat, which allows him to fly around, reach high out-of-reach places, and circumvent levels worth of platforming as long as you have enough hearts. Densetsu also places more emphasis on platforming as opposed to straight-up whip everything in your path, whether it be navigating balancing beams or moving platforms or crossing platforms crumbling away beneath you. Climbing up sections is hazardous because one stray hit can knock you off a platform and into the abyss below that seems to consume anything underneath the screen. Your lack of versatility is certainly no help in this regard, which makes allies like Grant or Alucard very useful indeed. Bosses here will certainly put up a fight, especially towards the tail end of the game. Akumajo Densetsu deviates from the game we got as Castlevania III Dracula's Curse in a number of ways. For example, in Dracula's Curse, you received damage based on level. The farther you got into the game, the more damage you took, much like in the original Castlevania. In Densetsu, damage inflicted is dependent on the enemy striking you, so bats would take off 3 hit points, fireballs will take off 2, regardless of what level you are on. This makes the later levels somewhat easier to challenge, since it doesn't take 4 hits to kill you. Some enemies, such as the Bone Pillars and Axe Knights, actually take fewer hits to kill than in the localized port, while some enemies have either different appearances or different fighting tactics entirely. These are some of the things that makes Densetsu a more forgiving offering than Dracula's Curse. The second run keeps the Medusas instead of swapping them with those bouncing skull things, so thank fuck for that at least. Dracula's Curse adds bats to certain segments where there were originally none, which makes some parts of the game really fun. Although Densetsu does give us this wonderful falling block segment, so not everything is better on the other ends, unless it involves my foot and its... well, never mind. Along with the return of the gameplay stylings of the original Akumajo Dracula, Densetsu also shares similar graphical stylings with that first game. Ralph looks like a slightly more detailed Simon from Dracula 1, which means brown and beige hero. That was useless. Anyways, moving on. The game looks a tad prettier than its predecessors, more varied and detailed characters, more interesting locales to fight in, some neat little effects and details here and there. Densetsu has a couple odd things, the frog-like imps that were replaced with the fleamen, the shiny crucifix in the intro that was made less shiny in Dracula's Curse, because that makes it less religious, I guess? And apparently there were more boobies in this version if you pay attention to that sort of thing, which I don't. I really don't care.
They're huge.
Dracula's Curse did have a nice font, however. Densetsu uses the stock video game font from the previous games. Meh. But the most notable thing about this version is that it had an additional VRC6 chip that enhanced the audio quality with some slightly punchier sound effects and a more flavorful soundtrack. The music in Dracula's Curse is top-notch stuff, some of the finest collection of tunes to grace the NES. But Densetsu's VRC-enhanced soundtrack sounds richer, much more livelier, or in some cases more haunting. I'll admit it's hard to go back to Dracula's Curse and listen to its music now, knowing that these tunes, while still good, is missing that little something to make them more impactful. That said, there are some tracks that work better in the localized port than in its original incarnation. Blasphemous, I'm sure, but I don't know, I kind of prefer the faster-paced vanilla version of Pressure in Dracula's Curse. Feel it does a better job of making a tense situation feel even more tense. Nightmare also benefits from the simpler melody to give it that haunting feeling. Nightmare in Densetsu was the closest thing to ear rape that you could get in that game. But it's all good regardless, so whatever. Sound effects, like I said, also a significant step upwards for the most part. While some effects are recycled from the original game, they did add in some new ones as well as a new whip sound, a new armor collision sound, and even some bits of digitized monster growls. Which is fun, I guess. I suppose. Kind of. So Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse is a quality outing that builds on the original Vania gameplay with extra stuff, and is one of the bright spots on the NES library. The same can be said for Akumajo Densetsu on the Famicom side, along with the additional caveat of being a more polished and perhaps approachable game due to its enhanced audio quality and retuned balance. Does this make it a better game than what we got? Your mileage is going to vary on that one. I thought it was worth trying out to catch all the differences, and certainly the better music helps, but this wasn't some great revelation or anything like that. It was just a cool little curiosity. Honestly, I could go either way in this regard, and with the Castlevania Anniversary Collection available on a number of current platforms, you can go either way too. And you probably should, because any way you slice it, this is a fantastic game. One of the highlights on Nintendo's 8-bit machine. Oh yeah, just to get out of the way before anyone brings it up. Yes, I know about this. Maybe next year.